Destruction. Everyone wants it until you actually try to make it. But come on, it's 2026. Computers are insanely powerful, and half the frames you see in your games aren't even real. So why do some games choose to fake destruction or not have it at all, while there's games like Teardown where you destroy literally everything? And most importantly, how am I going to make everything in my game destructible all by myself? Let's face it, people love destruction. I remember when I was younger watching YouTubers like Exploding TNT create absolutely massive TNT structures and just blow them up because it was so satisfying. It wasn't even that the effects looked that cool or anything, and half the videos were just a slideshow because Minecraft was never meant to handle this much TNT. But 11-year-old me did not care. I thought it was awesome. There's a million different ways you can add destruction to a game, and by far the most common ones are the ones that give the illusion of real destruction. Examples of that would be spawning in some pre-rendered flipbooks, maybe spawning in some particles that simulate physics, or just simulating destruction in another software and then bringing that into a game engine. And all these methods have their own pros and cons, but when you compare that to trying to simulate physics on hundreds of objects every single frame, it's really easy for your PC to handle. And that's the main reason that we don't see a lot of games with really crazy, out of this world real-time destruction, because it's just so expensive and hard to do at scale. But performance isn't the only thing that makes destruction difficult. Have you ever heard of a level designer? These are game designers whose entire job is to take all of the systems of your game and put them together into one cohesive and fun experience. A big part of level design is guiding the player through levels, making sure that they don't get lost, and making sure that they don't miss any of those super important moments. These people are the reason that yellow paint is everywhere in video games. Me when I'm about to die, but I have to make sure the player knows that they use WASD to move. Now, imagine trying to guide the player from the first room of your game to the second room. But instead they just bust through the wall and skip all that content and then wonder what's going on because they missed that tutorial prompt. This was actually a big problem on a game I'm working on called Suck It Up. A few weeks into us working on the game, we decided it would be fun if the player could break walls and props in order to cause more chaos in the levels. Getting all that working wasn't really that hard, but it introduced the problem of level designers not being able to guide the player through levels since they could just blast down a wall instead of having to go through a couple rooms to get to an objective. This isn't entirely a bad thing, but we needed a way to bring some of that control back into the designer's hands. So they ended up using things like filing cabinets to literally reinforce the walls without actually reinforcing the walls. This means that the player can still break through if they really want to, but it's just a lot less convenient. We were able to design our game around destruction, but notice how much work we had to put in just because of that one decision. I mean, all of our levels had to be completely rethought from the ground up. Every time we want to add something new to our game, we have to consider how it'll interact with the destruction system because it is such a huge part of our game now. Yes, destruction is awesome, but it also causes so many headaches down the line, especially if you're trying to do real physics-based destruction, which is something that we've never even attempted because it's just so much more difficult. I mean, you'd have to be absolutely crazy to try that with a super small team, much less by yourself. Wait, what's this new It's Rascal video? So I figured, what better challenge is there than to make a game where you play as a boulder with the sole goal of destroying everything in your path? Huh. Well, that was a dumb idea. So, I'm making a game where you play as a boulder that destroys everything. I just started a couple weeks ago, watch part 1. And right now I have my boulder moving around, some art, and some destruction as just a proof of concept for the idea. And all that's great, and it's already really fun, but I realized I have one huge problem. I can destroy things in my game, but setting up the destruction is so tedious and annoying, and it just takes forever. The backbone for my destruction system is done through Unreal's Chaos system, which is their solution to high-performance real-time destruction. Basically, you can take any mesh, slice it into a bunch of pieces, slice those pieces into more pieces, set damage thresholds, and then boom, you have destruction. Now, slicing up one mesh isn't too bad, but I have to do this to every single model in my game. And since I'm working on this game by myself, anything that takes me an extra like 10 minutes every time I do it starts to add up like crazy. And if I make any changes to the model, even if it's just a small little tiny change, I have to go through that entire process again. So right now I have two options. I want to know what you guys think. Okay, option A. Just do it this way because it's really not that much time per model and I'll probably get faster at it over time. Or let's see, option B, spend multiple days researching, asking for help on the forums, and spending hours of trial and error to find a solution that'll make things go just a little bit quicker. I mean, come on. So I started by looking into Unreal's documentation and videos they posted online, and I came across a legendary tool, the Dataflow Graph Editor. That sounds way more boring and nerdy when I say it out loud, but it's very cool, trust me. What the Graph Editor lets me do is, instead of hitting all of these buttons by hand, boring, I can just set up a sequence of nodes that'll do it for me. Think of it as like a macro that'll click all these buttons for me and set all the values, but it'll adapt based on the model I give it. Come on, let me show you how it works. So right here is where we take the original mesh and make it where the graph actually knows what in the world it's talking to. Then if we come over here, then we get the model's bounding box, which is basically just a cube representing the area that the mesh takes up. Okay, next I take the area of the bounding box and scatter these points inside of it randomly. And now I can take these points and plug them into this Voronoi fracture node, which takes those points and uses them to make a bunch of random shapes. And now this might look like it's done, but oh no. Here on It's Rascal, we care about a little something called optimization. AAA, take note. After the mesh is broken up into a ton of pieces, I take this node right here to just get rid of any pieces that are way too small. That way we're not simulating physics on something that's like this big. Once I do that, I use these 3 nodes to take some random pieces and start to fade them away at different intervals. Then, instead of relying on per polygon collision, I create convex holes. These are basically just low poly approximations of the shape of my mesh, and then I simplify those holes way down to make my collision way less expensive. And finally, I hook it up to my output, press play, and oh yeah, we've got destruction. So now I can literally just apply this sequence of nodes to any mesh, change a couple variables, and then it'll break, which is super exciting. In my last video, I already set up this cool shader that I'm using for an art style, which I think is making the game look really cool and distinct and...
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of looks low poly. Like, it doesn't look bad. I just feel like it doesn't really make it that visually distinct.
As I was saying, in my last video, I made some super placeholder art that I was totally planning on swapping out as soon as I got the destruction figured out. And since we're to that point in the video where I'm supposed to face my ultimate challenge and conclude with a super satisfying resolution, it's time for an art upgrade to prove that my destruction system can actually hold up with some better looking models, or else my entire game is going to fall apart. It's time to explore the wonderful world of materials. I usually just find materials online, but if I want to keep a consistent art style, I feel like I need to make these materials myself. I needed something quick and fast, you know, something that doesn't require any drawing, maybe something a bit more nerdy and lets me really iterate on my materials. He's right behind me, isn't he? Substance Designer is Adobe's solution to material creation in game. You basically have a ton of nodes that can generate different shapes and noises, and then you blend them all together using different types of blurs and warps and a ton of other stuff. And then at the end, you get a pretty material. Sounds easy enough, right? Oh, it sounds real easy, doesn't it? So the software is a bit intimidating, but after a bit, I started to figure some stuff out and I ended up making this rock texture, which I thought was okay, but I still wasn't feeling great about it. That was until I was scrolling on YouTube and came across a 2-minute YouTube short by literally none other than John Nodes himself. I'm not joking, this guy is out here teaching a node-based software and is literally named Johnny Nodes. And what's more is this 2-minute YouTube short taught me more than every other video I've watched combined, and I mean, just look at their thumbnails. Darker than 0, brighter than 1, ascend with HD ranges. Level 1 crook versus level 100 boss. Substance Designer nodes tier list, and look at this one, reviewing student work. I'm sorry, but if my teacher reviews my work for an hour and a half telling me how I can improve my skills, and then posts it with this absolute banger of a thumbnail, I'm done. I am never touching the software again. I think that's where I have peaked in life. But after watching through a few of Johnny's videos, I was learning a ton of cool tricks and was really starting to get it. I started by making this wood texture to go on my barrel, and it was turning out really nice. Then on my models, I really liked the general shape language of the lower poly versions, so I just added some bevels to the edges to help smoothen them out. And after all that, I officially had a barrel. I am so insanely happy with how this thing turned out. And after working for a bit to make some more textures, I officially had a large enough collection of assets to make a pretty cool looking screenshot as long as you don't look at it for too long. But now for the moment of truth. How does it look with destruction? So after making some small revisions on my data flow graph and setting up all of my new props as break unbreakables. Here's what I got. All right, here we are with the brand new art. We have a brand new boulder texture that I'm working on, as well as all of the new environment stuff. I know it's still pretty barren right now, but I think it's gonna look better in the future. I'm gonna try and make some nice foliage too, so that we don't just have like grassed up PNG on the ground. But considering the amount of assets I have, the game is looking pretty nice. And check this out. Boom. Destruction. It's working. Another thing I want to show you guys is if I hit something lightly, it still looks like it does damage to it, but it doesn't break it. And then if I hit a little more, boom, it shatters. Here you see this line of barrels right here. Let's go through them. Oh my gosh. That is awesome. And all of this destruction took like no time at all to set up now that I have my pipeline. So I think we're gonna be able to make something pretty awesome. If you think that this is cool and you wanna help support my game, be sure to click on the playlist so that you can watch the entire development. And if you made it this far, consider subscribing. It helps a ton. Anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.